Hello and welcome to the Last Word on Spurs. We are your award-winning Tottenham Hotspur podcast, and we are back. Of course, in the back of another busy week as Tottenham Hotspur dip their toes into the transfer market yet again. And we're joined by three fabulous guests on Last Word on Spurs. Couple of returning ones, one making their debut. And by all means, I've got to tell you, many are excited for this debut. No pressure at all, Shawnee. Many suggesting the Danny Rose strike against Arsenal is up there with this debut to come. Listen, if you are with us for the first time, you can find us on iTunes. We're on Spotify. We're across all major audio platforms. We're, of course, on X. We're on Instagram. We're on Facebook too. And joining me, back fresh from annual leave. You know, annual leave was in a diary, but he's back alongside me. Lee McQueen, our crazy instructor conductor, is in the house. Macca, how are you, my man? Love to be back alongside me.
Again, on boss. I couldn't believe I had annual leave, Rick. I was like, hang on a minute. It's been a while. So, yeah, I mean, I've missed all these transfers that you lot keep waffling on about all for the last couple of weeks. Loads and loads of business been happening. It's all Daniel Levy's fault. It's all Ange Postecoglou. Get him out. Get Pops back. I'm sure you've been saying the whole thing.
What are you on about? You're mad. Yeah. What are you on about? I don't think he's got back. I don't think he's got back to 2023, 2022, 2021, 2020.
No, it's great. And it's lovely to be back on with Ad. But obviously, Shawn as well. In the house on a debut as well, mate. So it's great to have you on. And yeah, we'll get into it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, likewise. I say, lovely to have Shawn with us in the building. Before we bring the Shawn to give him a big upbeat there, let's bring the wonderful Adam Osper back in. He is our resident financial expert. We love Adam on, not just for his football opinions, but he offers some wonderful insights financially. I've got to say, whenever Adam comes on the show, the biggest comment I can play ads is that I get comments after saying, why is this man not on more regularly? That's because at every home game, pretty much, and he's at a lot of away games. So we try and get ads on where we can. Ad, love to be back in the building. How are you, my man?
I am good. Thank you for having me back. The raised eyebrows were at Lee's aggression and negativity. When I think the last time on here, he gave that rallying cry that we were going to finish third.
Adam was not. Adam did not remind me of that for about a month.
Yeah, I remember that one, and I bought into it. You suckered me into it, and I thought, right, it's going to happen.
I say just about 50,000 of the viewers and listeners bought into it as well. But
Yeah, I'm good. Nice to be back. Thank you for having me, as always.
Pleasure is all ours. Making up our panel first, finally last but not least. He's been a man that we've been looking at from the sidelines thinking, this man is just doing some great stuff in terms of what he's doing content-wise. And it's time to bring him in to the LWS circle. It's the wonderful Sean Butler, of course, Spurs Talk Show's very own. Sean, thank you so much for blessing your presence. How are you? Love to get you on to make your debut.
It's great to meet you, Ricky, Lee, and Adam. It's great to be here. Long time admirer, first time caller in, I guess, as they say. And yeah, looking forward to the chat. Like I said, a lot of people will know I've had a real tough couple of weeks. I've been talking to people online about it, but couldn't miss this opportunity to come and speak to you boys tonight. So I'm really, really grateful for the invite. And yeah, it's good to talk about Tottenham for a change.
Bless you, mate. You know, our thoughts are with you with regards to what's going on in your personal life. And like I say, mate, hope it's going to offer a little bit of slight relief. I know, again, or can say to you, Shawn, look, the comments are going ballistic for you. There's so much love in there, which hopefully gives you a little bit of, like I say, pick me up, because you're an amazing guy and it's lovely to have you on, Shawn. So thank you so much for joining us, mate. Really, really lovely to have you on. Right, bit of an agenda as to what's going to happen during this show. Look, we'll be dipping our market into Spurs' start to the transfer window. What are we made of it? Could we ask for more? Should we ask for more? Do we need more? I think we all know the answer to that last part. I think we're all nodding and saying, yes, most certainly. We'll be discussing what Spurs do actually need between now and the end of the window to be well-equipped under Ange Postecoglou in that second season. We'll be also discussing with Ads Blessing, who gives us a really good insight into financially about Spurs. And, of course, there's many questions around release clauses, obviously PSR, FFP. We'll be getting Ads' take on that throughout this show as we discuss the numerous topics. And of course, what you guys love at the moment, which is going on, is the transfer market. Who do Spurs need to sign, want to sign? Who do they need to let go between now and the end of that window? And like I said, it's going to be a busy, busy show in Last Word on Spurs. But look, only really one place to start. We'll go back to the very, very start of the week where, look, on the back of the signing of Archie Gray, Spurs is head coach Ange Postecoglou now has two new faces to work with. And, of course, one returning as well. You guys would have seen, of course, over the course of the last, day or so, those players have been starting to make their way through the door to report back for pre-season. Some happier than others to be back. But just to give everybody an opportunity to cover it, Macca, we'll start with you. You missed, of course, introduction on this show to Archie Gray being a Spurs player. So watching from the sidelines, Macca, looking in, what have you made of Spurs' start to the window and the acquisition of Archie Gray, who by all means, I think many are getting very, very excited about. But at the same time, having said that, I think ultimately there are some that are concerned maybe that we're not going for more of the prominent targets this early into the window. What do you make of it, Macca?
I'm sick of it, Rick. I'm absolutely sick of it. All we're doing is just going after this young talent. It's a joke. Like, you know, why aren't we going for these proper players, these £200 million players? Look, I mean, you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't, and let's be frank about it. If we don't go for an Archie Gray and Man United go in for him, or somebody else goes in for him and they pay 40 million, we get a load of stuff thrown at the club saying we're not ambitious, we should be spending 35, 40 million on a youngster. And then we go and spend 35, 40 million on a youngster, whatever it is, with Joe Rodon going the other way, and we get, you know, the mix of, hang on a minute, he's not going to start, he's one for the future. You know, we've wasted that slot, for want of a better expression. So look, it's a difficult one. You can't please everyone. I think what you can do is you can have a look at what he's done. There's a lot of clubs that were looking at him. The last show that I did, we did our show, didn't we, with Paul O'Keefe, who is the GOAT. And we talked about a lot of the transfers. I think you might have lost me.
No, we got you. We got you.
Can't be having internet issues. I'm not even in my house.
he's moved location. He's changed the Wi-Fi router, and he's gone everywhere else. And we've still got Lee Macca being frozen there. Look, let's pick up there where Lee left off very quickly on that. Of course, the signing of Archie Gray. Although I think Macca's coming back into focus now. We got him. We got you, Macca. We'll go to Adam. Let's go to you. Archie Gray, what did you make of it? Because I think, you know, we do speak a lot in regards to the window, when it's open, when it's not open. What have you made of the start to it, Adam, the acquisition of Gray? Are you fairly happy with Spurs' business so far? Could they have moved and accelerated for more prominent targets at this stage? Bear in mind the Euros is on, Copa America is on at the moment.
I think sometimes people don't understand bits about transfers. Like, clubs will always have like two strategies, right? One is buying young players for the future, and one will be strengthening the team immediately. And I think historically, up until the last few years, Spurs have gone down the route of just buying young players. I don't, you know, spending 35, 40 million, whatever it adds up to be, which includes Rodon, I think actually shows that we are willing to spend good money on young talent. That's a lot of money to shell out on a very good young player. Look, nothing's happening in the window. It's not Spurs. Nothing's happening. If you look about what's happened, nothing. Few free signings. Nothing happens to anyone at the Euros. They won't sign. There may be deals done with players that are playing at the Euros, but they're not going to get announced whilst people are playing. The only other stuff that's got done are all the clubs that have got FFP issues, where their business year end was July the 30th. So they had to get deals done by then. And then you saw Chelsea, Villa, Newcastle, I think basically just switching players that were homegrown, basically to try to basically balance the books. And nothing's been done with anybody. So I don't think it's anything to worry about. And nothing normally gets done, especially when there's tournaments on this early. So I wouldn't be worried. But I'm happy. He is a top young talent. He's 18 and the total price is 35 million. I think that actually shows intent to sign top young talent. So I'm happy.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to bring Macca back in there, Macca, if I can. Look, I mean, Adam just listed off there some of his, you'd say, achievements, but what he's done to date in a Leeds United shirt. And to be fair, I think that's obviously what's gained attraction for Spurs to want to sign him and ultimately move before, as we saw, that Brentford move nearly obviously did go through. Lee, look, a young player. I mean, we've seen it before here where we have signed players young and ultimately there's been a huge amount of pressure put on those players to perform. I think maybe you'd argue now that the environment is a little bit different to when the likes of Jack Clark joined us. We had Pochettino leaving, Mourinho walking through the door. I mean, it does feel, Lee, there's more of an emphasis on Ange this season, especially with the more games there are going to be in terms of Europe and hopefully domestically to give players an opportunity. Can you see Gray playing a real definitive role, given the fact he's taking a heroic shirt in the number 14 shirt? What do you make of it for you, Lee, in terms of the opportunities he'll hopefully get in a Tottenham shirt?
Yeah, sorry about that. My internet completely went just mental because I'm not even in my own house. I'm in a completely different location. It still goes. Yeah, I think the one for me with Archie Gray is you know, if he's good enough, he's old enough. The old cliche. You know, you've only got to look at the likes of Deli Alli, we bought him for 5 million a few years back. Obviously, he was 19, I think, wasn't he? 20 years old. He scored on his debut. People thinking, is he going to play? Is he going to start? I think the rise of Archie Gray is to some has been a surprise, maybe to outsiders like us or like myself. Certainly didn't know much about him before he burst onto the scene last season with Leeds, but they've known about him for a long time as an up and coming. I think the other key thing for me is that we've already got our own youngsters in our squad that have been high praise as well. The likes of, you just put a graphic up there earlier, Jamie Donnelly, the likes of Mikey Moore, Tyrese Hall, etc., etc. So there you go. But Bergvall obviously has joined us as well. So you look at some of them. I mean, look, Matassar as well. He's a regular first teamer, and he was all but 19 when he broke in. So I think we're going to be surprised. I don't think Archie Gray is joining us to sit on the bench and just play a handful of Europa League games. I mean, I'd love to know what you guys think, and in the comments as well. I think what I love about him is his confidence. He's got a lot of confidence, and he knows that he's going to come in and do the business. And that reminds me of these players that you just know there's something special about. Like the likes of Deli Alli. I'm not putting him into the Wayne Rooney bracket, don't get me wrong, but it's that confidence element when they can come in at 16, 17, 18, whatever, and go, mate, I'm here. I'm gonna blow the house down. And he's got that vibe about him. So look, good luck to him. He's a Spurs player. We'll back him all the way now, and hopefully he'll get a lot of minutes. So it'd be very interesting to see. There's a lot of people saying, is he a backup right back to Pedro Porro? Is he going to start in the 6? When you had the Leeds guys on last week, I think we had him on, didn't we, from the pod. He was sort of saying his best position is going to be midfield. A lot of pros are saying that as well. So we'll have to see. We'll have to see why we've bought him, and if Ange starts bleating in a few months' time saying it is a club signing, like managers gone by, or actually is he one that we really wanted? We'll find out through pre-season in the first game against Leicester, won't we?
Yeah, look, I've deliberately kept Shawnee there till last because Sean's not really had an opportunity to discuss the signings. He's obviously been offline the last couple of weeks, so I wanted to give Shawn the fresh opportunity now to discuss the signing of Archie Gray. I hope don't mind me to build up there, Shawnee. But look, it's interesting. Lee says there about club signing. Look, the player's come out himself and said that he loves Ange, his family love Ange. They're obviously big fans because of the Celtic connections and the fact that they were following Celtic from a young age. I mean, what's your take on it, Shawn? There's been people out there suggesting that this kid, again, it's a liken to a Jack Clark. There's others saying it could be likened to a Deli Alli kind of signing or a Gareth Bale kind of signing there. You saw the first season of a player being given a real opportunity to have a run of games. I think he made 52 appearances, and there could be something special about him. What do you think for you, Sean? Whether will he get that opportunity to fulfill his potential in a Spurs shirt?
Yeah, look, for me, I'm a little bit worried. I'm worried by the signing, and I don't mean because of the player. I think the player is brilliant. I think the guy is going to be I think he's a brilliant asset for Tottenham. You consider his age, what he's done, what he's achieved, and you think about other young players that have come through and got on to good things. How many of them have had 50 games in the Championship by 17 and a half or 18 years old? Very few. I think he's versatile. I think he looks like a player that's got the right approach. The footballing IQ for someone so young is really impressive. I'm not worried about the signing. I'm quite happy with the signing, if I'm entirely honest. I think his on-the-ball stuff is really, really, really sort of top level for someone so young. But his off-the-ball positional sense appears to be, very, very impressive as well. Where I'm worried, though, is more around the sort of the strategy that Tottenham presumed, and I think not just Tottenham, I think a lot of clubs and a lot of people in football generally presumed would materialize with the FFP and the PSR thing. I think that there was an expectation that maybe there was going to be a deflationary approach, like some of the air was going to come out of the balloon at the top end of the market. I think that Tottenham were maybe looking at players like Conor Gallagher. Arsenal were maybe looking at players like Isaac from Newcastle or Guimaraes or whoever else. And those 5 or 6 teams that were supposed to be in trouble sort of colluded, or at least appeared to have colluded together to get themselves through it by inflating their own youth players to at different levels to be able to get, kick the can down the road. And what you have at the end of the day, for me, is a system where half of the teams in the Premier League now have owners that have ambitions that extend beyond short-term ROI and are willing to do what's necessary to kind of get past the accounting deadline, but in so doing, keep the air in the balloon at the top end of the market. And the second part is that this pivot to youth. Oh, you know what? If you can't buy the top end of the market, let's get ourselves ready for the future. that will be a cheaper way of doing it. To me, it doesn't appear like that's happened. It looks like all that's happened is the price of the top talent at the youth level has just jumped up with inflationary pressure to ridiculous levels. Like Archie Gray looks like a superb player and a fantastic talent, but £40 million for a player that hasn't played a Premier League game, and players like Martson going to Villa for 35 million quid. To me, it's concerning around the strategy, the assumption that there was going to be a different outcome than what's materialized. The money is still there. It's just pivoting from, into the youth side. And if Tottenham's approach now is to go after youth, which it looks like it has been for, as Adam was saying, a couple of years, then a lot of our budget is going to be absorbed on priced in perfection for young players that haven't had a chance to prove it yet, if that makes sense. And I worry a little bit about whether or not we're going to have enough money to be able to go after the likes of an Archie Gray that, he might be the next Deli Alli. He might also be the next Jack Clark. We don't know. But do we also have enough money left over to go after an Ivan Toney, to go after an Eze, to go after a left-sided centre-back, to go after a goalkeeper, to go after everything else that we know? I don't think we will. And I think that that's where my concern is around the historical ambitions of our. And I'm not someone that criticizes Daniel Levy very often at all. I'm very much on his side for most of the time, but I worry about just the kind of the shift in focus in the market and the fact that the impact of those FFP and PSR concepts that we all thought were going to happen, it hasn't worked out that way. And to me, that I don't think that's a good thing for Tottenham. I think it's a little bit concerning.
It's interesting points you raised there. If I say, Sean, and before Mackin wants to come back in, I'm also keen to get Ad's views on that from an inflation perspective and PSR and how that does work. Because I think, interesting, I know people were saying in the comments, we've got the battle of the accountants here. I mean, obviously, look, Sean, you're very clued up in the financial, so is Ads. That's why we love having you guys. Well, definitely Ads on the show before. But I think, again, when you look at the player, what he does bring to Spurs, there's a versatility about him. Of course, he's predominantly sees himself generally as a central midfielder. He's played right back a lot for Leeds last season. We know Spurs are looking, it appears, to try and dispose of Emerson Royale. In the most polite way I can put that, in the imminent future, it looks like that move to AC Milan is on course. I mean, Macca, what's your thoughts on that? Because I think Sean makes a number of valid points there around the fact that it is now a real change in what we're seeing with the market in regards to now that value being really, you could say, inflated for younger players, but sometimes you're having to spend that to acquire the next big thing. But again, what Sean says there is what a lot of other Spurs fans feel is that whether we will have the budget there to still go after the likes of an Eze, after, of course, the other prominent target Spurs want, who, again, name-wise, there's interpretation of that name. And I want to say Doué for now. Tell me if that's wrong, Doué. Tell me if I'm wrong on that. Because I don't want to get hammered here.
He's only 18. That matter how you pronounce it. He's only 18 as well.
I mean,
so,
tell me, do you have those fears as well as Sean about the financial aspect of what we're doing at the moment, Macca? Do you have any concerns about that?
No, I think no, I don't. I think Sean makes some good points around the financial side. I think for me though, it's more about understanding where we are at the end of the window, because I do agree. Like, it is, if we've spanked 40 million on Archie Gray, and then we ain't got enough now to spend on Eze, as an example, we won't know that until kind of the end of the window. But if we come to the end of the window and we've signed Eze, we've signed Doué, we've signed Archie Gray, we've got Ivan Toney in, do you know what I mean? That I suppose there's your balance of youth and experience coming in. Do you know what I mean? So I think it is the history though that tells us this great club of ours that we all love and adore. The history tells us that we don't do all of that. It does tell us that. Is this a sliding doors moment? Is it a change? Have we looked at this and said, look, for all of Angie's faults last season, one of the key things, if you look at it in that way, I know you do, Rick. But no, there was some
just throw me on that bus that just ran me over, Matt. Just go back the other way as well. Just finish me off.
I'm only jesting. Look, but for the faults that we had as a team last season, there was some amazing stuff there, and he has come out and said that he wants to challenge and be right up there for the title and for honours. And actually, is this the right strategy for titles and honours? I mean, does it look? I mean, I'm not putting pressure on the lad, and I'm not having a go at him either. But is signing Archie Gray going to make us challenge Man City and Arsenal for the league next year? No, like, simple as that. But Eze, Toney, Archie Gray, Werner, I know you're a big fan, Rick. They as a collective, that's the right strategy. See where I'm coming from? So I suppose only time will tell on that. I also do think that, joking aside with Werner, we had to push the button when we pushed the button with him. And I think we've had to push the button on Archie Gray when we've pushed the button because of the other clubs. So we've almost he might have been a target for a while thinking, we're going to keep tabs. And then Brentford moved for him. So we thought, well, we've got to go for this now. Otherwise, we're not going to get him. And, we're hoping, we never know, I suppose, will we? Certainly until the end of the window. But that is part of our strategy. But to Sean's point, I suppose we don't know, do we? Until the end of the window.
No, we don't. As let's bring you in there. I want to bring you in because I'm also really keen to get your thoughts, as in terms of the points that Sean made around inflation and the uprising of younger players. What's your take on that for you, Ed?
I mean, to be honest, I don't know if I agree with a lot that's being said. Like, it's the 7th of July. The window's been officially open a week. Like, we're obviously going to sign more players until the end of the season, until the end of the window.
I think the question is, well, is the nature of signing Archie Gray going to affect the players prominently wise at Spurs?
No, Lee said it. Spurs. I said this before, and I think it was misinterpreted. Spurs will have a strategy of signing young, good players and players for the first team. Newcastle, Chelsea, and Villa at the minute are solely buying young players and swapping them to balance their books. Spurs aren't doing that. It's got nothing to do with them. It's because Chelsea, Newcastle, and Villa all have issues, and they had to get business done because the business year ends on the 30th of June. All three had to do that. That's why they traded with Leicester as well, because they had to sell by the 30th of June. Got nothing to do with Spurs. Spurs have got no financial fair play issues. They didn't have to trade. And buying a young player doesn't do anything for your books. Selling a young player that you bought for nothing does, because you bank all the money. Archie Gray, the outlay is probably minimal. It's about 35 million, of which 10 was Rodon. So you're saying the outlay was probably 25 million, which will be probably 5 or 10 million up front, max. Probably 10 million up front and then 5 million over a few years. And we've lobbed out Rodon for 10 million, which goes immediately in your book. So your balance sheet is negative and neutral. And we're 1 week into the window. It have nothing to do with our approach to buying. And people are saying sign Eze and Tony on this chat. Absolutely, Spurs want to sign Eze and Spurs want to sign 𝐀𝐰𝐴𝐽, but they will not get done whilst the Euros are on. They may have agreed a deal with these players, like other teams will have, but nothing's going to get done until the Euros, until afterwards, because it won't, because the players are concentrating on the Euros and stuff like that. But there will be talks that are going on. So I think honestly, Archie Gray, I think us signing him is us actually moving for a really, really good, top yet talented player and getting him for decent money, which is something people criticise Spurs for in the past, for not paying the money for good young players.
Yeah, it's true. I saw so many people on that point.
Just quickly on that though, it's interesting, isn't it? Because if we hadn't, like I said in the opening monologue, if we hadn't have gone for him as somebody else, he would be getting battered right now for going, how are we not getting these top talent? I think everybody you speak to thinks and knows he is going to be, and already is. That's the key thing as well. I think that's what I said as well about, the first game of the season. I think he's going to be a top talent. Is he a first teamer? Only, again, time will tell, won't it? Sorry.
Right. Yeah. No,
just quickly, I just want to clarify, my take wasn't so much about Archie Gray not being a good signing, nor was it about the sort of timing during the window. I completely agree with that with you, Adam, regarding the fact that the Euros and the windows, it's been open for 1 week, so let's wait and see. 100%, you can't even judge the window in September. You have to wait until probably April or May and see whether the risks you took paid off before you can really give it. But my sort of take generally is more around just looking at recent signings, the price you're paying, the price that competition are paying for young talent. How much did Chelsea pay for Caicedo, for the young midfielder from Southampton? I forget his name right now. Begins with an L. I feel like there is a new standard. If you want to go and buy an Eze right now, then Crystal Palace, who would have once upon a time been considered a selling club because they just got rid of Elise, they're under no obligation to consider the amortization desires of Tottenham Hotspur when it comes to a release fee. The same with this Doué guy from France. It looks like a wonderful talent. 50 million quid for a 19-year-old. I just feel like there's this kind of, it's either inflation or it's pricing in perfection. It's one or the other, but either way, it's if Tottenham are moving into this youth team or young vision as a primary approach, it's going to cost as much as the traditional going after someone that's already proven themselves at 26, 27. Would have done a couple of years.
Providing you sell Prem to Prem, you're almost neutral, right? If we sell one of our players to another Premier League club, they will be overinflated. So it ends up being broadly the same, right? If we sell Skip hypothetically to another Premier League club, he'll probably go for an overinflated price.
75 million for Skip. I'm putting it out there.
But what you'll find is when you buy generally from France, Spain, Italy, Holland, they are financially, the countries and the clubs, weaker. So you don't always see the massive prices, and unless they're a top player and there's a buyout clause, or they're a young player with a top buyout clause. So I think you're right that in the Prem it is overinflated. But I think if everyone's paying overinflated prices, it ends up being the same, right? If you sell a player for 40 million that's only worth 20, and you buy a player that's for 60 that's only really worth 40, it's the same outcome as selling them for 40 and 20.
Right, no, I agree, but I'd say in Tottenham's case specifically, I can't think of too many times when we've sold players for peak valuation into the Premier League.
No, but then now with the amount of players that they're going to get out this summer, the wage bill will have a massive impact, on that. The money that they'll save on wages if they get rid of the Ndombele's, Sessegnon, Perisic, people that have already gone that are going to go, you'll see the wage bill coming down and all of that stuff. So I think financially, I don't think someone like Archie Gray, the headline numbers, I don't think will reflect anywhere near reality. And his transfer fees probably bonus related as well. It won't be 40 million outright. It'll probably be 25 million. And knowing Levy, probably 10 of that is based on Spurs winning the Champions League and the league in the next few years or something.
I think the key thing goes back to what I think we've been saying. I think what Sean, you made that point in your opening statement is that with a signing like that, and we hope it's not, is that going to affect what Spurs do in terms of the rest of the window? And just to clarify on your point, as you're right, it's very early on. Look, we're recording this show we're the 7th of July upon recording this, the 8th for the viewing or listening audience back on the commute tomorrow. So look, the key will be is, what the Spurs need, what are they going to do between now and in the window, and hopefully, like you said, what they're going to have taken out in terms of the budget for Archie Gray that doesn't affect what Spurs need to do next. That's what we are going to discuss. What do Spurs need to do between now and the end of the window? So what we are going to do, we are going to go for our first break of the show for our listeners and audio. We've got nearly 4,000 of you plus watching us live on Instagram, on Facebook, on YouTube. Can I just say again, thank you so much for all your incredible support for the show. It's a really, really buzzy panel. It's a great chat going on here. We're joined by the wonderful instructor conductor. Lee McQueen is in the house, as did Adam Asper there. Adam Osper making his return. Adam was about to hang up on me and never come back. And we're joined by Shawn over at the Spurs Talk Show making his debut. Great panel, great chat. And like I say, lots of good things to come on all things Spurs. Right, guys, let's turn our attention to what we do feel Spurs need to do between now and the end of the window. So we in our minds all feel that we are season ready, well equipped for, of course, season 2 under Ange Postecoglou. Now, I will start with you, Ed, if you don't mind, because Ange made that point towards the back in the last season that he is at Tottenham, and people can put the laughter track in the background here. They're more than welcome to. He wants a challenge for the league. That's what he told us. Now, that's what the man has said. He doesn't want to waste time. He's here to win at Spurs. I want to ask you, Ad, what do you feel, in your humble opinion, Spurs do need? You can even name positions or name players that you feel would take you into next season, being confident that Spurs could seriously mount a challenge for the Premier League, if that is possible in your eyes, given the level of opposition that there is out there at the moment.
So if we talk about utopia, or we talk about, for me, like the two most important things we have to do are a number 9 and a number 6 in starting players. They're the most important. And then on top of that, I would like Eze, that type of player, another really good winger, and also someone to challenge, stroke, play in the role of Maddison. They would be the 4 key areas, but absolutely fundamental are 2, 9 and 6. Striker.
So those are the non-negotiables for you this window, and 9 and 6 have to get done, as in your mind.
Yeah. I mean, look, I absolutely love Eze, but you could say we're overloaded with the wingers. We don't need to get into like the quality of whether they're good enough and stuff like that. But I mean, like the fundamentals, which will instantly make the team better, I think, is those 2 positions. And then you can go, as I said, a Maddison, a winger, probably another left back, to challenge and doggy, or if he gets injured. If you want to really, that's your like optimal, right?
Yeah.
That's
okay, that's interesting. That's interesting. Before we get into key players, Shawn, just to ask you the same question. From the outside looking in now, look, you cover Spurs daily on your channel. And again, many would have noticed you again doing a lot of the updates in terms of transfers and what Spurs have done so far. In your mind, Shawn, what do you feel Spurs do genuinely need to be in a position where they can mount a challenge for, I'd say, a trophy next season? Look, Spurs, of course, domestically wise, it's been a long time since we've been in that position. We've got obviously the Europa League that we want to see be taken fairly seriously. I'm sure most fans do. What do you need to see in your mind, Shawn, as you said at the very top of the show, to see Spurs are showing the right ambition? And that, I think, is the key word. Ambition is so crucial when it comes to Spurs, because for a long time we haven't always seen it, surely.
Yeah, not for a long time. Well, when it comes to I agree 100% with Adam that a 9 and a 6 are essential. I disagree that the wingers are not necessarily as crucial. I think we're overloaded with 8s. I think we have far too many 8s. And if I'm entirely honest, as much as I absolutely admire someone like Eberechi Eze, I don't see him as an out-and-out left winger, a one-on-one specialist like what we need. I think he's someone that can play that role. I think he can play many roles. I think he's going to have a wonderful career. But for Tottenham to drop, if Archie Gray costs net 40 million when you include everything, then Eze is going to be 65 only because of the release fee. But most of that's going to come up front. Not to get onto the money stuff again, but I just worry about whether or not it is the right move for Tottenham, whether he's the perfect fit for Spurs, because I don't think he fits naturally the left winger role that I think we need an actual specialist, a take-on specialist, and I'm not sure he's that guy quite yet. If you're going to buy him to play him in the 10 role and compete and cannibalize the minutes that James Maddison's going to get, then I think that there's a problem with the kind of justification. But I do think that Maddison needs competition. And if you're asking him to play in the 8, then we've already got about 7 of them. What happens to Bergwijn? What happens to Sarr, Bentancur, Bissouma, Højbjerg? And the outgoing market for Tottenham is never that simple. It's the secondary market for Tottenham has never been an easy one for us to sell. We don't get our money back on the players that we buy. And so for me, I'd love to see us just press pause on the versatility aspect. I know Ange loves players that can can do everything. And I know it's a part of the game that is emerging, that everyone seems to need to be able to do everything all the time. And I get it. But in 2 or 3 key positions, I think you need specificity rather than versatility. I think the 6 is crucial. I think you need somebody who can sit there and protect that back 2 or 3 in transition, who is confident on the ball, but who knows how to read the game and get into those spaces, who's got a brilliant engine and a footballing brain. And there's a lot of them out there, but we don't seem to be looking at them. But I think you can't go young on that. Now, Archie Gray might be the kid who can become that guy. But I think there's unknowns in that regard. So I'd like to see us go for someone with more experience. I'd like to see us go for someone that's proven to understand the discipline that's required in the 6. I think in the 9, you also, no more kids, no more youth. We got the Veliz guy, he went out on loan to Spain. Whatever's going to happen with him, I don't know. But with the 9, it's crucial. You go and get an Ivan Toney or someone else. And I do also think that, like I say, a winger. And then after that, if you've got change left over, then with the outgoing, hopefully the departures of like Emerson Royale or those sorts of players, then you go and get some sort of maybe some versatile fullbacks, maybe someone that's homegrown that counts towards the club trained number as well. But for me, it's 3 positions are crucial: a 6, a 9, and I do need a one-on-one specialist. And
for you, Shawn, just to be clear, Simon says, Adam, those are for you the minimum we're going to need in this window for you to feel in any way confident going into next season. Is that right, Shawn?
Yeah, absolutely. If we don't bring in a new striker, listen, I think the whole forward line needs work, and I would actually consider. I know a lot of people will think I'm crazy here, but if there were decent offers that came in for anybody within that forward line, and I'm including Son, I'm including Richarlison, I'm including anybody. If there were offers that you can't refuse that came from certain parts of the world, I would consider all of them, because I think that you need the budget to go and spend it on creating what Ange needs. And Daniel Levy traditionally isn't someone that's going to kick the can down the road on the risk appetite. So if it has to come from within the club, the easiest way to do that is to maybe liquidate some value before it becomes too late. And, so on that basis, I don't think our forward line is anywhere near good enough to handle what Ange requires from his system. I think it needs a lot of work.
Just before I bring Maka in there, I think the key thing for me is that when I look at that forward line, I've got to be confident that if we're going to let any of that forward line go, we're going to bring somebody in that is better than what we've already got. And I think that's always my biggest concern with Spurs, that if they were to, dare I say, sell Heung-min Son tomorrow, who I know, again, there's some outlandish claims that Son had a poor season last season. Go and look at the stats. I mean, Sonny still produced one of his best seasons in terms of goals and assists as a ratio. And that's not me digging you at you, Sean. I'm just saying that I find it staggering at times when I see people digging out someone like Sonny, who, to be fair, at every given opportunity where he could have left the football club, he not only stayed but reaffirmed his commitment, and then went and signed a new deal when, with no disrespect, the poster boy of the club was busy flirting away for his future. I'm not saying that Spurs should not be looking at Sonny's next heir to the throne, or should not be looking at a long-term replacement for Sonny, because he isn't getting any younger. I think the key thing for me at the same time is that, yes, someone like Kulusevski does frustrate me. Many will know that I was not really massively behind seeing Timo Werner return for a second season. I think the key thing I need to see is that if we're going to let anybody go from that forward line, and I'm the same as you, Sean, there's players in that I would definitely look to replace. I need to be fully assured what we're bringing in is better than what we're 100%. Getting. And before I bring Maka in there, Football Heritage says here, we won't buy a left-wing specialist as we were too busy getting Werner, big up everybody. I think, look, many know my fears and concerns about Timo Werner, but again, if I'm having him in here as a squad player and he's replacing somebody like Brian Hill, I don't mind that, because Brian Hill barely featured last season. And even I can say, as much as I didn't particularly want Werner here for a second season, he is an upgrade on Brian Hill, because look how many minutes Brian Hill got to the minutes that Werner got to the goals that Werner got. And look, again, I think the key thing will be, as we keep coming on to, it's what Spurs will do in terms of prominent signings that are going to give us confidence going into, of course, next season. And to bring you in, Maka, look, you're on here with me most weeks. So, look, there'll be a lot of names that you have banded around and we've all banded around that we'd love to see at the football club. But maybe just sticking on positions, because this is a really interesting topic that everybody's kind of giving us. What for you, Maka, are in your mind the key components that, positional-wise, are going to take Spurs to that ultimate next level?
I agree. I agree with the lads already. I mean, I think number 9 is absolutely imperative. I mean, you talk about kind of goals in the forward line, and to Sean's point, it does need work. I think Andrew said that from the minute he walked through the door, and even when we're shipping all them goals, he kept talking about the forward line. That's what he kept talking about. You don't sell your star striker and the man that scores goal after goal, is a machine, absolute machine, and not replace him, which is what Spurs have a history of doing this, right? Jan Vertonghen, Toby Alderweireld, as an example. Like, Carl Walker, I said to you on our very first show, we're never going to replace a bloke. I think we probably just replaced him now in terms of Pedro Porro. And exactly, when did we sell Walker? So 100% need another number 9. And I'm not talking about getting a number 9 in and selling Richarlison. I'm saying keep Richarlison. He could be the backup number 9, or he can fight for his place. There's something about Richarlison. I'll tell you what it is. He scores big goals, and he can score against big teams. He can do it, and he can. And there's a lot to say about that. Jason, one of our own, says that a lot. When do the goals matter? You had the Lucas Moura hat-trick in the semi-final of the Champions League. He scored big goals. There's other times where Lamela was loved by us, but he never scored big goals. Like, Lamela was a classic example. Done with Rabona in the North London derby, and then he got sent off in the same game. It's like classic stuff. So it's kind of like Richarlison's got something, and if you can get 12 to 15 goals out of Richarlison as a kind of a backup to an Ivan Toney as an example, what you're going to get with Tony. And I won't go into names, sorry. So definitely a number 9, 100%, but not taking away a number 9 and bringing an additional one in. That's what I'm saying. 100% number 6. Completely agree with the lads. 100%. I don't think Ange will ever call them a number 6. If we did end up signing Conor Gallagher, which I don't think we are going to, by the way, but if we did, it wouldn't surprise me if he starts him in that sort of position. But when you look through the names that we've already got, Shawn, you mentioned 𝐁𝐲𝐬 as well. I mean, many think he's going to go. We've had it on good authority he's going to, but the reality is we've got Skip there, we've got Archie Gray there, we've got 𝐁𝐲𝐬 there. Thank you. Look at them graphics. Oh, look at this. It's like we've done it. Here we go. We've also got a Basuma there as well. You got one for Biss? Come on, find me Biss, Rick.
I've got to find him. It's about 30, yeah. There he is.
And there he is. Look, you've got Basuma there as well. And then obviously Archie Gray, we've just been talking about. Actually, what we're saying is that we need a number 6, and we do. A few people in the comments, we need better. So that's definitely a position that we need. You're looking at a kind of an Ederson and a Nana. Paulinho's just gone to Bayern Munich. Who are these players? And Ugarte, I don't know how to say his name. Linked with Manchester United. So there's some key areas there. But again, I agree with Shawn. These and Adam, these can't be necessarily youngsters. A number 9 coming in. We've got Scarlett. We've got Troy Parrott. We've got Valise. I mean, people just forget about these youth players that are coming through. Jamie Donnelly basically played number 9 striker before he dropped back as well. It ploughed his trade there. So we've already got youngsters in that position. And again, left wing for me, 100% left wing. You look at Nico Williams and you think, mate, in a Spurs shirt, he would tear it up. I'm loving it. There you go. You got him as well. Unbelievable. It's like we planned this. And Neto as well. You got him because he's been heavily linked. And again, friends of the show, and the people that we're working with the likes of Paul O'Keefe and Ali Gold. It's been there's some definite interest there. Obviously, there's an injury scenario with Neto, and we're worried about him. But again, the bloke comes back from big injuries and he just starts making an impact straight away. So I think what's really important is that we get the targets that, not what we want. I want Eze all day long. And we've had it on good authority that the club want Eze. So hopefully that gets done with base connection, etc., etc. But at the end of the day, I think I don't want to piss anyone off, right? But I think over the last couple of years, probably since Prasiji started cooking in the background, we have started to get the targets that we want. There's no doubt about it. And I think that there's no reason for me to believe that we won't get that this summer as well. As Adam and Shawn's said about, we've got no issue around financial fair play or PSR, and we should be going for them targets. And I do think, deluded as I probably am, Rick, as the people in the comments will tell you, I do think we're gonna land a couple of biggies. And and speaking to everyone else, we're looking at five or six coming in the door, and that's to replace some of the squad players, if you like, that are leaving. I mean, if 𝐁𝐲𝐬𝐿 does move on, we will end up getting a replacement for him, and maybe Archie Gray is that spot.
Yeah, I think
when was the last time that Tottenham? This is what concerns me. It's like you see Aston Villa go and get 70 or 6, was it 59 million quid for Douglas Luiz? Great player, good value. Juve seem to find the money when it matters. Like the top tier teams around Europe, when it really matters, they have the money to pay for the players they want, and they might make it work with a couple of players here or there to go with it, like Illing Jr. But Tottenham never seem to be able to ever tap into the value of the players that we have. And it's not just because they're bad players. Some of them are very good players that we can't see. I don't know whether it's a relationship thing or some historical nightmare, but Tottenham don't find value like other clubs do for our outgoing talent. And it's a concern for me. And I don't understand. I've never understood why we can't get the same sort of pound for pound value that other clubs can into the European market.
Don't you think that probably still goes back to like 2018, 2019? I think it all stems back to that period where we basically had that really great squad of players under Positional, didn't turn it over, held on to those players for too long, kept going, and then we reinvested in a group of players that we now know were not good enough. You could not sell Ndombele post-COVID, where European clubs were financially screwed, for a player that we bought for 60 million and 200 grand a week. You can't sell them.
Of course, so he's an easy example to like explain the situation away.
I can list them all from the lot up
I
until.
don't know. Lo Celso is a wonderful player. He just and every Spanish club wants him. They just don't want to pay for him. Brian Hill, every Spanish club wants him. They just don't want to pay for him. Lamela, we ended up letting him go and paying Seville, I think it was, for 20 million quid for the privilege. Like there's a never-ending list of good players that we've signed that haven't represented the Ndombele story.
But even if you look
at the value from
Lo Celso is a good player, injury prone, and not really. He started in one season on loan, and he's on big money. So again, it's the same thing. He's not blown it up. Douglas Luiz has blown it up in the Prem, had a good season, been sold. Lo Celso hasn't played more than 5 games in a row for Spurs. So do
you think that Tottenham will be able to get £25 million, £30 million for Højbjerg this summer?
Yeah, I think Højbjerg will go for something like that. I think Lo Celso will go for.
You reckon they'll get that kind of fee for Højbjerg, 25, 30 million? You reckon?
No, probably 20, something like that. 20, 25 million for Højbjerg.
What worries me, I worry because European clubs. Sean's pointed out there. I don't think you know as well. It's very hard.
If you go back to Douglas Luiz's point, you're looking at a player that has done well in the Premier League, is a decent player. Højbjerg is viewed. He's mixed in with our fan base. I get that, but he's been a pretty established Premier League player, and he looks pretty good for Denmark. So somebody will look at that and think, I'll buy him. Spurs have tried to do the same with Lo Celso, who looks good for Argentina, ship him out on loan, and he's injured all the time, and then injured for us. We never plays. So nobody's going to take a gamble on someone and pay him 125 grand a week. Again, when there's it's different to Højbjerg. I think Højbjerg's probably played enough and done enough to get a move, and I don't think he's a risk for 25 million. Emerson will sell.
Never injured either, by the way. Never.
Never injured. I think the players we bought in 2019, they've all come in on big wages and big money, and it's really difficult to shift them. It's not. I don't know what Douglas Luiz would be on, but he was an established player playing really well.
Yeah, and again, we know there was interest from Arsenal there the previous summer and January as well. I do want to ask you guys about what it appears to be one of Spurs' prominent targets. Lee's already brought him up in Eberechi Eze. And the reason why, I want to tap into maybe Ads and Shawn and even you, Macca, the financial element of this, because we know the player, what we understand to be from good sources, that he has got a release clause. Now, I think, 4 or 5 years ago, it would just be a case of all you got to do is trigger that release clause and you will get the player. I think what we're becoming to notice is with a lot of players that do have a release clause is that it's not just as easy as paying the money. And what I mean by that, Ad, is with players out there, and Shawn's coming as well, and you, Macca, as well, you've got image rights in there, you've got different other things that build up, not just the release clause of how to get the player. So maybe, Ads, to ask you in terms of, again, you were here when that Dybala transfer fell through at the time. Explain to a lot of the listeners and viewers why that never materialized and why Spurs didn't get the player. When you look at the Eze deal for Tottenham to make this summer, which is the name by all accounts, the majority, I'm not saying everybody wants him, but there's certainly a clamour amongst a huge amount of the fan base for the Eze signing. We've been told on good authority that, as you've said, Ads, nothing's going to happen now. It's going to be until after the Euros, once the player is back at his club in terms of Crystal Palace for any real negotiations to start. What will need to happen, Ads, for a club to buy Eberechi Eze this summer from the outside looking in from your perspective?
So with the release clause, there are 2 ways it can happen. One is if his release clause is 60 million, you go, here's 60 million up front, and then you go and buy him, and then the release clause is triggered. And I think after that, I don't think it would be particularly difficult with somebody like Eze to get him, because image rights and stuff like that wouldn't be an issue, because he wouldn't have an image rights company at Palace, so he'd be setting up a new one to come in and then just agreeing wages, which I suspect wouldn't be an issue. Probably the issue with Eze is Spurs might have said, right, we'll pay you 60 million, but it might be dependent on what they're going to pay up front of that 60 million, which is probably, Steve Parish might say, right, well, we'll agree a 60 million sale because you've triggered it, but I want 40 million of that up front, or 30 million, whatever it might be. Spurs might be saying, we'll give you 20 million. So it will be that bit that's probably delaying it, the structure of the payment rather than the deal that comes after. I mean, the Dybala one, I can go back on that one really quickly, but that was basically because he had an offshore image rights company that was owned by, which he didn't own. It was owned by, so it was like the director of the company were his old agents. So basically, they had to be bought out in order for him to come into the UK. So you can't have an offshore overseas image rights company in the UK. And that's basically what happened. And I think they wanted like 11 million.
Yeah.
And you just can't get those things done that late because it's legal work.
The key thing here, Ad, is as we know, look, they've got time on their hands. You know, there's a lot of time to get this deal done. I think the key thing here, Sean, as well, is that ultimately it's a player that we know has got a number of connections to base, which Spurs seem to be very cosy with at the moment. Of course, and just come from base. Sar's recently transitioned to base. Son is with base. You go for that Spurs squad. Porro's with base as well. There's a number of players that, of course, are there. So you think, Sean, on paper looking in, given the fact that, again, it's a base client, it should be easier to do the deal. Is that fair, me suggesting that, Shawnee?
No, yeah, I 100% agree that on paper, everything about the deal makes you think it's not going to be too complex, apart from the Elise deal to Bayern Munich that probably wasn't necessarily on the cards. Chelsea tried to get Elise allegedly. Palace decided to go in a different way, get him out of the Premier League, so he's not going to come back to bite them. It allows, I'm not sure of the structure of the Crystal Palace of the Elise deal, but it allows Crystal Palace, under Oliver Glasner, that they're doing bits and pieces. They're looking like a solid team, but they've got a really core group with Adam Wharton just excelling immediately, Mark Gahey doing wonderful things. They've got some really good fullbacks, and then when you factor all that stuff in, as Adam was alluding to, it's not about the desire to sign or sell the player. It's about the willingness of the selling club to consider the cash flow of the buying club. And if Tottenham were to have to pay the £65 million, whatever it is, release fee, I think from what I've read or heard, it's about 55. It's like 85% of it needs to be paid up front, as is stipulated in the contract. Now, they don't have to necessarily stick to that. They can negotiate. But why did Crystal Palace need to do it? If they've already lost Elise, they've just got Oliver Glasner, things are looking good for Crystal Palace. Are they desperate to sell two of their top stars in the same window? I would say no. And so they'll make it as difficult as possible to lose for Eze to leave. And so on that basis, then you have to factor in, well, if Tottenham are the sort of club who traditionally don't have owners that are kick the can down the road on the ROI, we'll use more debt. Bearing in mind, I think we already have £280 million of transfer debt and £700 million, give or take, on stadium debt still on the books with amortized, all to be amortized. Then you factor in the reality of the situation, and you kind of go, well, for it to make sense, then Eze has to be the perfect signing. And I would go back to the conversation and make the argument that I'm not sure he is. If you're going to spend a record signing for Tottenham, as much as I love the player and I think he'll be a superstar, is he what you need as a left winger? I'm not sure he's proven that yet. Is he what you need as a 10? Well, maybe, but you've already got James Maddison there. And so how are you going to fit them both in? Well, if you're going to fit them both in, then someone else in the 8 or 2 or 3 of them have to leave the club. And I'll go back to the same point I made 5-10 minutes ago, which is Tottenham traditionally don't do very well at selling their good players for the right valuation in a market. So for me, like, as much as I think on paper it looks like a simple deal to do, I'm not sure it's the deal that I would do given the circumstances of everything else I've just mentioned.
Have you got a prominent name, Sean, that you would like to see maybe over Eze come in that you think would really, say, change the game but take Spurs up that next level? Is there a player that you see that could really do that for Tottenham in that forward area?
Yeah, I mean, as a left winger, I'd love to see Pedro Gonçalves come in from Portugal. I think he's sort of demonstrated to me, or Dani Olmo, for example. I think that those two players can play left, they can play right, they can play in the middle. They're versatile, but they're good enough at the take on stuff as well. They've got great vision. And also, if you were to go after that, then you might have enough change left over to go and get the big 6 that we're talking about earlier. Yep. So I don't think if you're going to go after someone like an Ezequiel Palacios from a Leverkusen, or someone who's like a Polinia level kind of 6, a Joshua Kimmich, for example. If you could go and tempt someone like that to come to Tottenham, it's going to cost you a lot in wages. It's going to cost you a lot in bonuses. It's going to cost you a lot in the transfer deal. And I don't know if Tottenham have got the kind of willingness or the bite to be able to do it all in the same window. So that for those reasons, I'd rather see us go and be a little bit more smart with how you spend the money. Go and get a kind of versatile but still appropriate winger that can take on players from both sides, and go and get a big 6 and a 9 like Tony, like we've already said.
I'm finding the chat fascinating, Macca, because again, there's so many great opinions that are coming in with different views and, of course, different ways in which people will view what is to be considered a prominent sign in this window. Sean's made the point that for him, maybe Eze wouldn't be his ultimate choice, and there's other players out there that can actually fulfil the position, and it not just be about bringing somebody in that is just versatile, ultimately looking for what you would call a specialist. I want to come on to the forward in a second, but Lee, just to give you the opportunity to speak about Eze, and that's a player that you are very much keen on. I think one thing we have to consider as well, Macca, is that we're not really discussing, although it might be the release clause as well there, it's competition. You said it before, Macca, if a City come in, if a Liverpool come in, dare I say it, it's very hard to really sell them Tottenham right now being the best option for them when Spurs are not in the Champions League. People are going to hate me for saying this. We're still in a rebuild. I've been saying it for 20 years on here. I mean, Macca, tell me we're not in a rebuild anymore. Are we in a rebuild? Where are we on Eze?
We're in a rebuild, mate. We're in a rebuild. Look, I mean, I think again, Sean makes some brilliant points on Eze, and I have to agree that actually is he exactly what we need in terms of position? I probably agree with Sean, but we're Tottenham, and we're Tottenham fans, and we need players like Eze in this side. We need them. We need somebody that's going to come in, drop a shoulder, take somebody on, ping it in top bins. We've had them all the time. We need that as Tottenham fans. So there's that point. I think though, like just listening to chat and having this conversation with all of us and the people in the chat as well. I would be disappointed if we don't sign Eze, but if we sign the rest of the players that we were talking about, because I actually don't think Eze is a left winger either. I'll be honest. I don't think he's a left winger. I actually think he is a number 10. I think he sits in that way. And maybe if you're Ange and you're gung ho like we know Ange can be, maybe you play with Eze and Madders in the same team. I mean, it'd be absolutely carnage. You'd have to definitely go and get an unbelievable number 6. N'Golo Kante, when he first come to Chelsea, he was like having 3 players, right?
100%.
It's that sort of scenarios. I'm not saying N'Golo Kante now, although he's still doing the job. But it's that sort of player that can get around the pitch so much. And maybe that is in Ange's mind a Conor Gallagher. I'm not saying it is. I'm just saying we know Ange is keen. We know that. So the Eze point is we need footballers in our team in a Tottenham shirt wearing the lily white that will run, that will take somebody on, will drop a shoulder, will beat 2 or 3 men. And Eze's season this year, or last season, sorry, has been that. But you've also got the likes of, we've just talked about Nico Williams, this Doué guy who's 12, isn't he? 12 or 13 years old. Like him coming in. Do you know what I mean? It's like,
younger, aren't they? I mean, they started off with great.
I'm sure he's a good player. Like everyone's watched the YouTube videos, but we all watched that with Ndombele. But I think for me, it's about. This is what I said right at the beginning. It's about the strategy of bringing people in that fit the jigsaw puzzle. Like we all want the big new shiny signing of Eze or whoever. Let's put a poll out actually to see if people do actually want Eze, because you're making some really good points about. Look, we'd like him, but do we need him? That's slightly different.
Yeah, of course. 100%. I want to.
Is he what we need, Sean? That's the thing, isn't it?
Yeah,
that's the point I want to make. It's just not to go back on it, but when I mentioned about like I would consider selling Sonny, I'm not sitting here saying sell Son like he's toast. Sonny's our best forward that we have. I'm just saying if there was ridiculous money on the table, given what we know, what we're seeing with the market, there is no cheap options out there. You're paying top money for unproven talent. Then, and with the ownership that we have, can you really consider them likely to put their hand in their pocket and go big? I don't see it happening, and therefore the money has to be raised from somewhere. And therefore, in that market, with those things considered, if there was a ridiculous money that a number that you couldn't turn down, but that doesn't mean I want Sonny out of the club. And the same with Eze. I think the player is going to be a world-class player. I think he's brilliant. I would love him at Tottenham. All things put to one side, all considerations just over here. Yeah, I'd love to sign Eberechi Eze. But do we have enough money to do everything that we need to do this window, including Eze? Does he fit the bill for the money And do we have enough left over to still go and get Tony, to still go and get someone in the 6, to still go and get a versatile fullback, to still maybe, I think we need a goalkeeper. I think we've got 3 or 4 English goalkeepers that are stealing a living because they're born on these shores. If Vicario gets sent off in the first game of the season, or if he was to get injured, can you imagine Ange Ball with Fraser Foster? Or one of the Whiteman.
We saw that in the Carabao. We saw that in the Carabao.
Exactly. I mean, it's a disaster, right? So, I think that you have to consider all these things, and when you bake all that stuff in, for me, when it comes to Eze, I land on probably not. If I'm honest.
Come in there, Ads. For us, what do you reckon of those comments, Ads?
I mean, I think we spent 160 something million. I know we sold Kane, but we sold 160 million. We bought 350. Van der Ven was 45, Maddison was 45, Brennan Johnson was 50. So the players that we're talking about, the positions are all in and around that, maybe a little bit more at 60.
Yep.
And I think if you sit there and list all the players that they're going to sell and go out, I don't think we'll do that. I don't think we're going to go and spend 90 million on a player, but spending 60 million on Eze, we spent 50 million on Johnson. I don't think it's going to be a massive either or. I mean, the thing about I think I've said this before, the thing about names and stuff like that, and I sort of say it all the time, I genuinely don't care who we sign as long as the manager wants them. My view of Eze is if Ange wants him because he thinks he's perfect for the system, or if Ange wants Conor Gallagher because he thinks he's perfect for the system, and that's who he wants, then so be it. It is what it is. It don't really matter if we sit here and go, well, I don't rate Conor Gallagher because of blah blah blah. If Ange is right, this is the guy I want in my system.
You're right.
Because of that, it is what it is.
The most important opinion, regardless of us as fans, of course, we're all fans at the end of the day. You're right. The most important opinion will be the manager, because he's got to be responsible for that signing. So I think just on that point, Ed, because you brought up about the need for maybe looking at the number 9 position. Spurs, they have been linked with the likes of Jonathan David, who enjoyed a decent season last season, 26 goals last season. You look at his overall last 3-4 seasons, it's been 20 plus with him. Pedro Neto is another name being mentioned. Maka brought him up earlier. Look, this guy seemed destined for a transfer away from Molineux at one point. But again, he has been showing linked to those lot down the road. But there are concerns really with the injuries of Pedro Neto. And again, you've got to remember saying Wolves right now, they've just sold what they consider to be probably their best player in Max Kilman, who's gone to West Ham for 40 million. So you'd probably say Wolves are in no desperate need now to generally sell this summer. I mean, again, Ed, I know you don't like to talk about players in general because it's about what Ange wants, but tell me, Ed, for you out there, when you look at the forward options this summer, Tony, of course, has been mentioned. Maka mentioned him earlier as well. Do you think it's a case that you'd have to sacrifice for Richarlison to bring in a top striker, or are you actually working on the formula of keeping Richarlison and adding to that forward area with a Tony, with a David, with a Neto? How do you see that for you?
I think if they got a Tony, I think they'd sell Richarlison. We're talking about raising money here. There's talk that Richarlison could go to Saudi and we could offload him. I don't, Richarlison's a sub for me. I don't think he's good enough. I would love Tony personally, but I don't think we're going to go for him. I don't think he fits the way Ange wants to play. But again, I don't really know too much. I think he's too much of a sort of target man type, more of a target man, static target man. I would love him, but I'm not sure that's the type of striker that Ange wants from how he plays that sort of front three.
What do you think he wants? What do you think he wants?
He likes sort of almost like a Son, like a wingery type.
So it's back to that versatility model again, you think?
Yeah, I think. And when he speaks, they're the types of things he said. I could be wrong. I would absolutely love Tony. I think he's ice cool in front of us. You saw it yesterday how cool he is in front of the but I personally think if you've got like an Eze and a Tony, and I think you could sell Richarlison and probably get decent money.
How confident are you, Ed, that you'll see a forward come this window? How confident are you that we're not going to start the season with just Richarlison as the out-and-out number 9?
Well, I was confident every year we'd buy a backup for Kane for 10 years, and we never did. So I'm probably not the right person to ask for that question,
you waited an hour and you've just shown your hand. I mean, come on.
I was like confident we were always going to get someone, and yeah. So I don't think I'm the person. I don't know. I think we will. I think Ange has made it clear he wants a striker.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think he gets what he wants, but you saw it last season. He wanted certain players in certain positions, and he got them. You know, he wanted Maddison, he wanted Johnson, he wanted Van der Ven, you know, he wanted Dragusin. He got all of those players. And I think he definitely wants a striker. So I do think we'll get one. I think it's going to be really tough though, because like, how many clubs do you think are going? Well, we want.
Everyone wants a number 9. Everyone wants a number 9, don't they?
So who are we going to be competing against for Tony if we're in for him? Loads. You'd think.
Apparently, a lot of the clubs that you'd think would be a bigger draw than Tottenham have walked away.
Yeah,
concerns about his personality.
Yeah, possibly, but I mean, you never know in football. You know what I mean? You never know. You know, stuff can change. You know, Arsenal, you could say, could go for him. Chelsea could still go for him. Liverpool have got a new manager; they could go for him. United could go for him.
Yeah,
all of those have got an argument to sign him, and us.
And Brentford, first and foremost, you know, messed us around with the Raya deal last summer, and then we've come in. We were fighting with Brentford for Nusa. Was it in January, I think, and Brentford won, and then just recently with Archie Gray, we've got our vengeance. So I'm not entirely sure that Brentford would want to help us out, maybe with the next one with Ivan Toney anyway. So
it's a great point. That
maybe we can sell them Emerson Royale.
Well, I think that guy's bordering a plane if he's not already. Although I've got to say, we're going to come on to it in a second about the pre-season. He did mention on his Instagram the King is back in the building at Hotspur. Wow, I know that went down well with fans alone calling himself the King. Emerson Royale, the King. I'll tell you what, tells you the nature of Spurs. Right, so on that point, we've obviously brought up about the forward area. Just finally to you on this, Shawnee, just so I've asked Lee and obviously adds there. You made the point for you that you mentioned the 9 being a position for you, Shawn, that you said that's a non-negotiable in your mind. When I say to you, when you look what's out there at the moment, obviously Ads brought up the fact there with Tony, we're not sure how this summer's going to play out in terms of what clubs may come in for him. Where are you standing on that for you? Do you look at the fact and feel you're keeping Richie in addition to adding a forward? Because I think people are mentioning the points that, you know, he played fairly well at that period where he got, I think, 9 in 9. But I think what the telling point for me is with that is that when he actually came back from an injury, Ange barely played him, which I think told you everything. You know, again, if this is your real main guy, the guy you want to rely on, you're putting Richie in that team. And really, he didn't do that after the injury. So what did you see out there for you, Shawn, striker-wise, that would fulfill you, confident-wise, we're going to upgrade in that area?
Yeah, it's a really difficult one for me on Richarlison because I've never been a fan of the player. A fan of the person. Like, I obviously differentiate between the two. But I don't rate the player. Never did. When Tottenham signed him, when we were linked with him, I wasn't on board with it. And you know, I haven't been, even throughout his good spell this season. He seems to be someone who struggles, obviously, with a lot of mental health kind of issues. I'll simplify it, you know, and say when he's in the mood, when he's feeling happy, everything, and he's getting his minutes, everything's going well. When he's either injured or when he's struggling with things in the background, things at home or whatever else, he's not doing so well. And I feel like that to me isn't someone that you can build your forward line around. If you're also going after this youth aspect approach, which Tottenham are, then you need your more experienced players to be captains of mentality, captain, like, you know, just sort of mentality monsters. And I don't think he is. That's and so on that basis, if there was nothing else to consider, then I would very much be willing to let him go. However, as you mentioned earlier, Ricky, you know, if you want to see players leave the forward line, you have to be confident that you're going to improve on who you bring in to replace them. And in the 9 role specifically, it's a very dry market. It's super high demand, super short supply, and you know, I don't see us being able to get 2 strikers in that are better than Richarlison, even if you were to sell Richarlison. So I worry about the fact that if you bring in like an Ivan Toney and he becomes your starting number 9, then Richarlison is going to become sulky and start to see the kind of wrong side of Richarlison, the kind of like the more difficult side of Richarlison again. And if you keep him and therefore you have to play him to make him happy, to keep him happy, then are you going to, you know, how do you juggle that? It's a difficult thing to balance out. For me, as I say, I don't think the market is liquid enough to go and get two strikers. And so I'm probably less likely to be on board the idea of selling Richarlison right now And in terms of bringing in a number 9, I think the simplest of all of the options is probably Tony. I think he's prem proven. He's English. He's homegrown. He's cool as a cucumber. I understand what Adam's saying around the type of player that he is and does he fit Ange's kind of fluid system. I totally take that on board. But when you look elsewhere, if you're going to go and get a 𝐂𝐤𝐬, that's going to cost you ridiculous money that Tottenham aren't going to pay in all likelihood. Are you going to be able to go and attract the lowest Openda from Leipzig? I'd love to see him. I think he can do that versatility thing. But Leipzig aren't going to sell him, I don't believe, this summer anyway. Someone like a Benjamin Sesko's already turned down Arsenal, said he wants to stay in Germany. So when you look around the market, you kind of think, if Ivan Toney is available for a certain price point, if that's the benchmark, that's the kind of the kind of starting point, and then you look up and down from there. Within the Premier League, Dominic Solanke or Ivan Toney. For me, it's Toney all day long.
I think I'd say Becker's going to walk over at this rate when he heard Solanke come out there.
Look, I mean, just to interact with you there as well in conversation, like, you look at that ګeraki's, whoever just
𝐂𝐤𝐬𝐿.
He was at Brighton 3 years ago, went to bloody Coventry, like 10 million quid. Now, here's the thing: this is the reality of football. We were talking about this earlier about bringing in young kids and whatever. You could have bought him 3 years ago for like 10 million, and now you've got to pay 80 million for the bloke. Do you know what I mean? Like,
if you bought him for 10 million, everyone would be crying.
Exactly. You're buying for 10 million, everyone would be craziness, like, let's go and hang ourselves, whatever. Right. The other thing as well with Dominic Solanke, it's no disrespect to Dominic, but he's no better than Richarlison. Like, he's 100%. Not. He's no better than Richarlison. So, and I agree with you, Sean, on the point that at the end of the day, I'm not saying that I love Richarlison. I love his attitude, love the guy, and I do, like, in terms of the man, the bloke, and he seems to love Spurs or whatever. Is he the guy that's going to fire 25 goals, 30 goals a season? Because that's who's got to replace Kane. No, he ain't. But is he the guy that could also, along with a Jonathan David, rumoured to be last year in his contract, 25 million, whatever it might be, him and Richie fighting out for that position? I think that's quite interesting. And also Andor and Ivan Toney with Richarlison. I get the bit that you were saying earlier about the kind of the sulking bit that might happen, but that's competition for places. But we absolutely have to have, in my opinion, 2 9s. If we sell Richarlison, we're going to have to go and sign 2 9s, and we're not going to do that in one window. So I think, Osherman and all that, 𝐅𝐸𝐿 in the comments, in the chats, is talking about Osherman. He ain't coming Spurs. We don't shop at Harrods. We can't go and get our fresh food from Harrods. It has to be M&S or Waitrose, right? Or that's where we're at. We're not going to Fortnum and Mason.
There's risk, Lee. There's risk in every single option that Tottenham have been linked with, or even the ones we haven't. You look at players like Vlahovic at Juve, like new manager going there from Bologna. Maybe he doesn't want to play there. Maybe he's not going to fit the system. Maybe that guy's Motta's going to bring in someone else. Vlahovic, right? He hasn't got any Premier League experience. He's not the same guy at Juve as he was at Fiorentina. So there's risk there. You go to Santiago Jimenez, right? The Mexican kid in Feyenoord. Like, who knows whether he's going to be the next Harry Kane, or he could be the next.
He's got 5 goals more than Troy in the same league, and Troy's one of our own. He's homegrown. He's come through the ranks, and everyone's like, "Get rid of Troy. Let's get Jimenez in." Why would you spend 40 million on Jimenez?
I'm a fan.
You know what I mean?
I'm a fan of Jimenez from what I've seen, but you can't ignore the risk, and you can't also ignore the historical track record of players coming from the Dutch league, looking great and then failing at the top level. So when you factor all of the variables into your consideration, and you go, who has the least risk? Who is the player that will be sold this summer? I think you land on Ivan Toney, because I think he's prem proven. I know he's not, but there is no such thing as a perfect player. But for me, for the money you're probably going to spend, if you can find a way to keep Brentford happy and not let them, ruin us like they did with the Raya deal, then for me, factoring in all of the variables, for me, I think Ivan Toney makes the most sense of all of the options out there. Jonathan David, for what it's worth, the guy bangs in the goals in France. Like you can't hate his numbers at all. But every single time that I've watched him, I've been so underwhelmed by him. And I think he's a player who suits, he's a pace merchant. He's like a kind of like what Brennan Johnson was at Nottingham Forest. And then you have to rely on him to transition to a different system with a low block that you're facing most of the time. I'm not sure if Jonathan David is going to make the step up, and I'm not a huge fan of the player, even though I know he's also available for fairly low money.
Sean or Ad or Rick, who's the chap? People would tell us in the comments. Who's the chap that plays up front for Forest?
Chris Wood.
Iwobi.
No, I know about.
Is it Elanga? Not Elanga.
No. I know who you're talking about. He's got a lot of goals.
He was quite keen on him.
He's got a lot of goals in his first season with Forest. Done really, really well. Yeah. I think 10, 15 plus.
I just think there's. I don't know what it is in me. That's it. That's the guy. Yeah. Because if something that Adam, you said earlier about kind of the way we play, the way Andrews plays, does he fit in the system? And we had John Grecian on here lots of times now, who's the biographer for the amazing book. Yeah, for Andrew's book, and and I think it was 𝐅𝐸𝐬𝐿 has said it earlier in the comments as well about, is it 𝐂𝐤𝐿 that plays for Celtic? And I'm surprised.
𝐂𝐤𝐿, yes, 𝐂𝐤𿐿.
Yeah, 𝐂𝐤𝐿. I'm surprised that Andrew hasn't gone back into some of his older players.
I totally agree. I'm surprised. I agree with you, Macca. I'm surprised that we've not seen more of an influence from the Asian market yet. Maybe it's something they're looking at, because I think that's interesting. Given how good he done in terms of bringing the players in from Celtic in the Asian market, I'm surprised it is one that we haven't tapped into. Right. What I don't want to do is put some chaos into the show, because we're an hour and 16 in. And it's meant to be a shorter show than normal. But what I wanted to ask you guys one very quick question on a player that you probably wasn't expecting me to throw into the map. But before I do, just a real quick update on where we are with a player that we haven't yet mentioned, but I know many are intrigued to see his situation, how this plays out. This is the likes of his name again. I hope I get this right. Desiree Adu. Tell me if that's wrong or right. But I understand at the moment that Chelsea and Tottenham are looking at signing that player pretty quickly in the next week or so if it is to happen. Although, can I just say again, there is genuine interest, we understand, from the likes of Manchester United, Bayern Munich are also being linked in there, and of course Paris Saint-Germain. So I think given the level of caliber of clubs competing with us for that player, I don't think it's a case of pay your money and you get the player. He's going to have to really want to come to Spurs, and it's one that we'll keep an eye on for sure. I wanted to ask you guys a question. And look, we were discussing earlier about sixes and the need for either a genuine number 8 to come in. There's a player that's currently a free agent. Why am I doing this? Because I think you guys won't know what's coming here. He's a free agent. He's looked okay. I'm going to say, Shawn, didn't you? Free agent, looked quite good in terms of his training video that he's put up in the last week or so. He's got a hat full of goals that would help us from a homegrown perspective. And the comments have got it. Deli Alli. Now, I'm not saying we should sign Deli. I'm just asking the question hypothetically that if Deli Alli is without a club and we're towards the end of August and Spurs haven't pushed the button on a 6 or an 8, would you consider bringing Deli Alli in on what I would say is a pay-as-you-play deal? I don't know what you guys are thinking of that. Maybe just a one-word answer, because I am concerned this could really take the show into a different dynamic. As you look really confused by what I've just asked that question. You obviously didn't see that coming. No. Where do you stand on Deli Alli?
I'll always love Deli, because I think everybody does. If we got to... I think if we got to the end of the window and had to sign him, then the reality is it might be a failure that we didn't get who we wanted to get, and we're desperate. I think if we get good players in that we want, and he's still free, and you could probably get him on relatively low wages, then I would probably take him just for sentiment, because I like singing his song.
That's what we've got to now. We're buying players and we like their songs.
You asked me, right? That's what I'm saying. Like, I would like to sing the song again. As I said, if we get to the end of the window, we haven't signed the players in the position we want, and we end up with Deli, I think we failed. I think that's the reality of it. But if he was, if we were strong and got key players and he was about, I wouldn't have an issue with getting him in the squad and just having him there as a number. Because
look, again, when you put a comment out like that, again, it casts a real mixture of different feelings and emotions and of reaction. Again, a question, not saying we should do that or want to do that or need to do that. It's a hypothetical. There's been nothing to suggest at the moment Spurs want Deli Alli, although from what I understand, Spurs have offered Deli Alli the training facilities to get himself back up to fitness, which I don't have a problem with. I'm sure no one have a problem with that, because, again, he gave us a lot during his time. Shawn, I can see there's words leaving my lips. You were thinking, did I really have to ask that question? What are you thinking, Shawn, on that?
Yeah, no, I'm sorry, Deli, mate. I think you need to go away and focus on yourself. And life is more important, and I'm not sure that Tottenham need to continue to be the sentimentality monsters all the time. As much as it would be a lovely romantic story for him to resurrect his career at Tottenham, I just don't think we've got the space in our squad, and I don't think he. Look, the answer is no for me. Sorry.
All right, Shawnee. Macca, very quickly on this. I always knew it was going to be one of those subjects that will cast different feelings, different views. I know you loved Deli Alli during his time at Spurs. Macca, what would you say now if you were offered the chance for Deli?
No.
Definitely? No?
No, that's it. You said one word answer.
I know. I was expecting a follow-up.
Let's leave with the one-word answer.
I've never in my life known a one-word answer. That's why I was thinking it's a follow-up here. He's
love Deli Alli. But there's some points been made. Like even when even when Deli was at his prime, he still used to infuriate us. This is like your ex-girlfriend, and you're going to your ex-boyfriend, and you're going, I don't know, I can't remember why I split up with them. Like you split up with them for a reason,
right? 100%.
So
it's a perfect analogy.
Like, you just remember the good stuff, but there is some not necessarily bad stuff with Deli, but there's some frustrating stuff there as well. And also, where's he fit? You're talking about bringing him as an 8. We've got about 4,000 8s. Do you know what I mean? So
I'm just saying, if we don't get the 8 we want, we don't get the 10 we want.
I don't think so. Although to be fair, training with us, amazing. Like and also as well, it wouldn't surprise me. Look, football's bonkers, and it would not surprise me if he come and train with us. And
that's why I'm asking the question. And Ange might like him.
Yeah.
This is why again. I may as well ask the questions. Don't shoot the messenger. Right. Very quickly, we're going to get through these super chats if I can very quickly. Daniel Rebecca Playtime says, Tony won't work with Ange. He doesn't press well and has an attitude. He only wants to play that Tottenham. Clearly, he just wants out of Brentford. The guy here, Carl Bates, says, would you take Osimhen for 90 million? I think many of us would probably take Osimhen given the level of player he is. Whether Spurs have the 90 million to spend, I don't know. But yeah, thank you so much for that comment, Carl. And DTMK says, after the pro transformation, I'd love to see Deli under Ange. It also counts as homegrown, which is one of the reasons why I brought it up, because Spurs, as we know, have a slight issue in relation to the homegrown. And before we do come on to finish on the pre-season preparation, just to give fans an idea of where we are in terms of youngsters and what is happening in and around the football club, I think it's really important to bring it up that we understand that there's heavy interest. Ali Gold has reported in Jamie Donnelly. We understand Luton are extremely keen on taking him on loan, as is Birmingham City, with former Spurs boss Chris Davis a big fan. Keep an eye on Bristol City as well. We know there are links to Will Lancashire possibly heading out on loan. One man who's been concerned about, again, who's pictured here, is Mikey Moore, who we understand from Ali is expected to heavily feature in pre-season. Although we've seen some tentative links this week with Borussia Dortmund sniffing around him, there's been also some reports around Man United and Man City as well. Again, his situation is that he's not able to technically sign a professional deal until his 17th birthday, which is on August the 11th. So he isn't entirely locked down yet, although we know with Spurs, there is, we believe, a keenness to have him involved right from day one of pre-season. He's been involved from day one. You saw him there in the image. He's been involved. Another one expected to feature is Tyrese Hall, which brings us on very nicely, actually, to pre-season preparation, where Spurs were back in the building. I say back in the building. The players were back in the building, of course, over the course of the weekend. Saturday did mark the return where we saw Ange and his staff back involved in the building. We saw the likes of Montgomery. We've seen Raimondo, who for me still sounds like a magician act that's going to take off at some point during the season. The great Raimondo, as many will know, watching Only Fools and All Season. Nick Montgomery there as well, pictured. The two men that are going to be part of Ange's backroom staff to hopefully get Spurs to silverware, we hope, fingers crossed. That first day was marked with the likes of Lucas Bergvall coming in the building. We saw Archie Gray come in the building as well on that first day. A new haircut for Destiny Udogie, who, great news, looks like Destiny is already back on the weights, which gives an indication that hopefully he's ready for a full pre-season. We've seen Elo Valiz return from his loan, along with Jed Spence. So as we touched upon, there's a lot of work to be done for Spurs in terms of that window, as the boys have touched upon. Sergio Reguilon, Ashley Phillips, Alfie Devine, Ashley Phillips. What's going to happen with these guys? Manor Solomon also back involved as well. Looks like Manor Solomon to some degree also is training, which is a good sign to see. Who knows what the future will hold for him. Timo Werner, of course, in the building, along with Pat Matassar and, of course, Yves Bissouma. Guys, we've not really touched upon it. You know, as you said it at the start of the show, for as many players we want coming in, there's a lot to go out, isn't there, Ads, between now and the window coming to a close. I mean, it's going to be a busy time down Hotspur Way, right, Ads, in terms of outgoings, you feel?
Yeah, I forgot about Region until you mentioned him. But yeah, there's
I think he forgot.
Yeah. There's I mean, I'd need a pen and paper to go through it all and list them, but I mean, it'll be the same thing. There'll be the same 10 or so players that they've tried to shift every single season. I think that you might, people like 𝐁𝐵 will go. You'd assume Lo Celso will go. I think he's only got a year left on his deal, so you've got to do something now. Spence will definitely get sold. I'm sure Region will get sold eventually. Yeah, there'll be a load. So I think you can, when we're talking about incomings, I don't, you could potentially, sell a Richarlison for relatively decent money somewhere, and then your 𝐁𝐵, Region, Spence, and you can end up probably accumulating, bringing quite a lot of money. But we've said the same thing every single season about the outs, right? It's the same players. I mean, don't look too much into it, right? Players have to go back to training.
Yeah, of course.
And I'm sure there'll be stuff going on. But as I said it before, like sometimes people are impatient with these things, but it's a merry-go-round. The Euros is on, the Copa America's on.
Yeah,
people will be waiting to do these sort of like circular deals to move players in and out to trade.
Yeah, absolutely. I think what's also important to bring into the fact as well that Vicario, Dragusin, 𝐁𝐵 obviously were involved in the competitions of their respective nations, but obviously have since departed Germany, with the trio now going to have a summer break before returning to Spurs at a later date. Again, we'll have players like the likes of Romero, Lo Celso as well, as Ad's touched upon there. They're, of course, involved in Copa America, as is Rodrigo Bentancur as well. Sorry, didn't appear to be involved in any of the training footage over the weekend or photos released from the football club. So, again, you'd imagine his return will be fairly soon. We've seen, obviously, Bergvall already getting involved in terms of on the bike with Dejan Kulusevski, and Archie Gray getting involved in terms of his first cut days, which looked exciting. We've got a lovely quote actually from Archie to end the show on. But I think coming over to you, Sean, on this point, we look at pre-season, and again, it's a reminder when you see all those players coming back, as Ad's just said there, there's a lot of business to do, Sean, not just in terms of incomings, but outgoings as well, which I think people sometimes forget. Sometimes I'm not saying Spurs are in this position. I'm not going to try and start another argument or start a debate here, but, to some degree, we do need to get players out as much as we need to get players in. Is that fair, Shawnee?
Yeah, well, 100%. It's fair. And, the rules around European loans, I think part of the rationale as to why we cancelled Ndombele's contract and paid him up, I don't know what the details were around how much if we paid him out in full in one lump sum or whatever, but it's because the rules, once again, around how many overseas loans you can have come back down again. I think it's 6 now, which is the max. Last year it was 7, the year before it was 8. And Tottenham are a team who continuously struggle to offload undesirable players. And so we have to utilize the loan system, and it becomes more and more difficult as those numbers or the kind of feasibility shrinks. So, look, it's a massive summer for outgoings. I don't know who's in charge of the outgoings, whether it's Paratici or Langer or McKenzie or whoever. But I'd love to see us get the ball rolling very quickly. There is talent. I totally agree and take on board the point that clubs will wait and see after the Euros and the Copa America. There'll be more action into August. 100%, I understand that. But there are a lot of players within our squad and still amongst the teams in the Premier League and around Europe that didn't make their national teams that are back at their clubs, and players like Emerson Royale. It would be lovely to see a statement sale quickly that brings in a decent money that sets a sort of precedent for our level in the next week or two. If we don't see it, then I start to worry about whether, again, it's one of these things where we're going to be kicking the can and there'll be more loans than there are sales, and more kind of, and that creates its own problems around bringing players in. If you want to bring players in, you have to make room. And so I hope that over the next sort of 10 to 14 days, we're going to see someone like an Emerson Royale, a 𝐁𝐵, a Lo Celso, a Hill, whoever, out the door for the correct valuation, not for like 3 or 4 million quid, but for 15, 20 million, as we spoke about earlier.
Yeah, I mean,
the some point is it that you made is a really good one, Ricky. Not a good one. It was just a point that you made that made me think. It's the first time Sonny.
I don't remember. Because that's the first time I had a good point.
Yeah,
probably a fair point.
It wasn't a good point. It was just a point.
It wasn't.
Taking 6 years to say it.
But what I mean was, when was the last time Sonny had a summer off? People always like sort of played last summer. He had the Asia Cup. I don't remember the last time he had, time off at all, where he had a summer off. This is the first time. So I think that will do him a world of good. I forgot about Gil as well. I forgot that's a good.
Yeah. I mean, the names keep reappearing, don't they? Another one comes to mind. Another one comes to mind. It's ongoing.
The problem we got, Shawn makes the point, and it's a real. Then the problem we got is you got these players that are undesirable, whether that be Spurs wanting too much money or nobody wants them because of what Spurs are wanting for them, and that's why it goes so late into the window, because you try and sell them for as long as you can.
Of course.
And then eventually it's just like, well, no one will buy them, so we have to loan them out now and get rid of them quickly.
Yeah.
But you'd like to think now with a lot of these players, their contracts are running down. So it's just like you have, like Lo Celso, you have to do something.
Yeah, you got to.
And you hope that Daniel Levy, as much as for people that aren't familiar with me, as much as I genuinely and more often than not will find a kind of an understanding for his actions when it comes to his negotiation style. I've always been frustrated. I feel like it's a zero-sum game with him. He thinks that someone has to win and someone has to lose, and that to me is, that doesn't necessarily suit relationships. Yeah. If he is true to his word and he's kind of stepping back a little bit from the role of being involved, he needs to delegate more. We now have more than enough people, more than enough footballing heads within the club that can handle the negotiations, that can decide on what fair value is. And then you hope, therefore, that we can rebuild some of these broken relationships with clubs around Europe and actually get some of these players out the door. If Daniel Levy can't let go, then I feel like we're going to continue to see the same sort of frustrations with regards to outgoing players.
I think with Lo Celso, like, he's got a year left. It's like you're almost hampered a little bit there. We have to do something.
Yeah, totally agree.
Somebody said, what did somebody just say in the chat? Somebody just said, that wouldn't surprise me. Someone like a Bentancur going. Someone said,
Ken, bless him, stole my final question there. That I was going to end on Macaron, because Macca brought this up actually about might have been a couple of months ago. Macca, you might have brought it up 3 or 4 weeks ago. That Macca said, don't be surprised if you see a name that does go out the door that maybe many didn't expect. And I just wonder, guys, probably a question I wanted to close it on, but start with you, Macca. When you look at the squad, and we discussed the need to bring in players in certain positions. We had that debate tonight about the areas we need, the players that we want, those that need to go out. Is there a name, Macca, out there that does surprise you, that maybe would surprise some fans, that you would maybe not be surprised about you personally leaving this summer? Is there a name that comes to mind where you think, I wouldn't be surprised about that?
I said this 4 weeks ago, didn't I? Potentially a Bentancur, a Kulusevski. I mean, look, here's the deal. Could be a Basuma. Here's the deal, right? Vicario in goal, Doggy, Van der Ven, Romero, Porro. Right? Broadly, no one's changing that 5, are they? Let's be fair about it.
No, not at the moment. No.
5, right?
Yeah.
And then the players to come in behind that, obviously, we've seen Dragusin, who's been brilliant. You've now got Archie Gray to cover right back. We've still got a left-sided centre-back issue, right? That will be a backup that we need to fill. But the reality is that's your 5. My question marks are 6. Could be a Bentancur, could be a Basuma, could be a højbjerg, could be an Archie Gray, could be a superstar coming in. But Madders is going to start. Right, for most people, Madders is going to start. Sarr, probably for most people, is going to start. Son on the left, for most people, is going to start. If you go and sign Doué, Eze, freaking Nico Williams, whatever it is, you're probably still starting Son. Like, that's the reality. Like, think about it logically. You're still starting Son, even if you sign them other 3. You've got to get a number 9, because it's either a Charleston or a Tony or all their names. And then on the right-hand side, if you signed a Pedro Neto, who predominantly plays on the right-hand side, as an example, you've got Brennan Johnson and Kulusevski in backup, right? And I didn't even mention your best mate, Rick Werner. So at some point, something has to give. And to Sean's point earlier about where we cash in, maybe we do cash in on a Bentancur. We signed him for 19 million or 16 million. He's definitely worth 50 million plus, 45, 50 million plus. He was quite expensive, but he's definitely worth 40 plus. 40
it's a central midfield. It's a central midfield area, isn't it? When you list all those players and you just say, højbjerg, Basuma, Sarr, Skip, Bentancur, Lo Celso.
We're overloaded.
There's
got Bergval's just arrived.
And Archie Gray rating himself as a midfielder. He's got more aims at Billericay High Street on a Friday night. It's absolutely mad. There's room for 1 or 2 of them beyond
I'm
Højbjerg.
not saying I would sell Bentancur, by the way.
Can I just say, for me on Bentancur, I think when Bentancur is fully fit, I think he's probably one of the best midfielders I've seen in recent years at Spurs, ability-wise, for how he carries the ball. I think that's my concern again.
Kulusevski, for me, in terms of technical ability, we scream out, why haven't Tottenham got technical players? And we have. Both of them two that we've named there are technical. If
Kulusevski offers something that nobody else in our squad has, go back to the game Luton away.
Yeah,
Luton away last season when we went down to 10 men for the best part of 50 minutes. He was the last 25 minutes. He was the only forward guy we had on the pitch, and he was absolutely sensational using his strength, shield as an outlet. You cannot sell Kulusevski. I know people get frustrated by his.
I absolutely agree.
You cannot sell Kulusevski.
The way he carries the ball and holds the ball and carries it and keeps you out of trouble, we don't have anybody to do that.
The thing is, this is the thing about Spurs is that and this might be a little bit controversial, but I don't think we as fans believe that we are big enough to carry that squad. There's no way in the world, Man City think, let's sell Kulusevski or Bentancur because we might want to bring in someone. They just do it. And it's not even about the money. I don't even think it's about the transfer fees. It's about being able to, how can little old Spurs, and Jose, to be fair, for all Jose's faults at Tottenham, Jose used to say this a lot, and I agreed with it. It's like, how can little old Tottenham have Kulusevski, Brennan Johnson, Eze and Doué on the bench? Because we can't get our head around it. It's like, but Man City have it all time.
But I think the difference is, for me, Lee, I think the difference is teams like Manchester City, even teams like Chelsea, for what it's worth, they have the heritage of trophies that they can offer as the sales pitch to these players. So look, you can come here and you're only going to get 25% of the minutes, but you're going to pick up at least one, maybe two trophies a season, or at least one every 2 seasons.
Playing the absolute best. Yeah.
You're pitching the story of a project that hasn't resulted in success. And so those sorts of players that are going to want to come, that are of the level that we want to be able to compete and close the gap, they're going to demand starting minutes. And so when you're going back to that question of like, who's the surprise sale? I agree with Adam that it's going to have to come from the midfield. And I think that when you think about it, it really has to be one of Bentancur, Bissouma, or Skip. And unfortunately, while Skip is the least desirable player of the three in terms of technical ability, because he's homegrown,
club trained as well,
and club trained, exactly. Therefore, he gets a pass. And so I think you have to make the tough decision of saying Bissouma or Bentancur. And given what we've seen of both, I'd argue that Bissouma has been the bigger disappointment.
I actually don't think Bissouma, Sean, sorry to interrupt you, I don't think Bissouma's six either. I don't think Bissouma's six. Everybody in the transfer window, and we all do this, and you all do it in the chat, and everyone watching us right now on Twitter, you all do this, because we all do. We go and Google them, and then we start watching YouTube videos, right? You go and Google Bissouma and watch a YouTube video on him and his time at Brighton. Bloke was a bowler in the number 8. He weren't no number 6. He wasn't 100%. Number 6. He was, and so therefore we're going, he's another number 8. That doesn't solve the 8 problem, but he's not a 6. So that again, it comes back down.
Or you do something crazy. I agree with you. I was saying on my channel, the moment that Ange Postecoglou signed with Tottenham, the second that I understood, or when I did my research, understood his system, I said we haven't got a Callum McGregor of a Premier League standard. That's a problem. We need a monster 6, and we didn't get one in the summer. We didn't get one in January, and we still haven't got one now. We've got too many 8s. And for me, like I said, I'm not going to repeat the point, but the other consideration would be silly money for a Pape Sarr. I know everyone will probably say he's the last person you want to sell because he's so young, he's got such a high ceiling. But given this market trend where you can get monster money from certain clubs for young players that have huge ceilings,
what would monster money be for Pape Sarr? What do you think?
75 million, 80 million plus.
I think that guy is the next big thing, Sarr. I mean, I see where you're coming from. Sure, I would build. If they may look at Sarr, I want to build the team around him. The guy's legs are just. I think the key is just finding that balance that Spurs need to do.
Well, I think that's
between now and the window. It's the balance, isn't it? And it's always a balance.
Yeah, because I think the formation that he plays, you look at the midfield and you say, right, you need to plonk a 6 in, and then you need 2 others. And you just sort of sit there and you think, well, none of them fit. Bentancur doesn't really fit it. If you've got a 6 there holding, he's not really he likes to almost sit deep in like a 2, playing deeper.
I agree with Sean. We've not found that player yet. We've not found that player yet.
Same for Bissouma. You know, they don't really fit. And I could see why Sarr almost doesn't fit that. I think Sarr's great, but he's almost like a central box to box, isn't he? Whereas a 3, you're playing a little bit wider.
Yep. Yeah. It's a really, it's a conundrum that will run and run. Right, guys. The final question I'll ask you all. Maka said it there. Maka, for you, is it a Bentancur or a Bissouma, or what one would you side with? If it was one you were going to think to go as a surprise, what one would you say?
I'm really disappointed to say this because I actually thought he was going to be a proper baller for us, but it would be Bissouma.
Okay.
It would be Bissouma.
Let's add similar question to you. What would you say is a surprise? Who would you say would be the surprise to leave if there is one?
Well, Bissouma, I'd say. I think he's massively overrated. People say he was brilliant at the beginning of the season. He had like 6 good games, sent off in 2, booked in nearly every other one.
Yep.
And he did well when the team was playing at its best.
Yeah.
He never, not once, played well when we weren't playing well. Dug the team out.
Yeah. Shawnee, for you, what's the surprise going to be if there is one? Who's going to go? Who do you reckon it will be?
Yeah, no, I agree with the boys. I think Bissouma, unfortunately, I think the template that has emerged of how to play against Tottenham at the moment with the fullbacks narrowing defensively and it come back to a 4-5-1, until Tottenham get wingers that can sit on the touchline and terrify defence again, which makes their fullback split, creates a bit more space, allows Maddison to stay forward and operate, then Bissouma makes sense. Until that solution is found, Bissouma isn't the right guy for the system that we have to play against 8 weeks out of 10 at the moment in the second half of the season. This template has proven Bissouma to be kind of valueless, like almost against this model. But if you do, if you can go and get the wingers, if you can go and get the solutions elsewhere, then Bissouma can become valuable again. But if you have to pick a specific player to sell of the surprise candidates, Bissouma.
Okay, and the opening title of the show was "What Next in the Window?" You can give me a name or a position. Very quick, we'll start with Ads, and we're going to end on Lee. Ads, what next in the window? Position or player? What's next for Tottenham? I'm
going to say the last player we're going to sign is going to be a striker.
just to infuriate us, yeah?
No, just because I think it's going to be the hardest one to get because there's a saturated market, as Shawn said, but it's a limited market. So I think it's the hardest position to fill because loads of people are going to be trying to get.
Is your answer just to infuriate us as well? You're giving us what the last one is and what the next one is going to be.
Yeah. So next one, I'm going to say a midfielder. That's such a weak answer, isn't it? It's like
listen, we have made one good point in 6 years. We'll take that. One next is the midfielder. We'll take that. Let's go.
You didn't even make a point. You just highlighted a point that I wanted to answer.
Thanks, Dad. That's why we love you when we bring you back for more. We'll go to Shorty. Shorty, what's next for Spurs in the window? Name or a position. What are we going next for?
The next player in will be a striker. I think we'll get Tony. I think that will get wrapped up. But I actually hope that the next transfer is an outgoing player. I want us to make some room in the squad and to get some money in and to set a precedent, as I said earlier.
Fair point. No one can say we're not trying to be sensible on that point with Shawnee. Right, Maka, leave us on a bomber. Are you going to leave us on a bomber?
No, I don't know, but I don't know what that is. This thing. I think we're going to sign Pedro Neto, and I think that's going to be the next transfer of the line. And there won't be any England players, Eze and Tony and whatever, because we're going to win the Euros. So we're going to be in there for a long period of time yet. So there's still another week left before we can get them boys off the plane.
Maka, thank you so much.
Gets done.
Love that, boys. Got to say massive thank you very much. Over 6,000 of you have tuned in and watched this live. Again, a massive thank you to all of our incredible watching audience that are listening, watching, downloading, submitting. You guys know we've got lots and lots of content to bring to you for the summer with some of these wonderful, fabulous guests that you see on your screen. And I want to say a massive thank you to the wonderful Adam Osper returning. Ads, thank you so much, my man. I say it's always a lesson, I've got to say, whenever Ads comes on here on some of the financial stuff. We know we love you, Ads. And again, I will say this again. Many ask, why can't we have Ads on more? I'd love to say it's the diary permissions that makes us do so. Whenever we can get Ads and grab him back on, we try our best to do so. Ads, for those that want to find out more and can follow you daily, if they want to follow you daily, if you want them to follow you daily, where can they find you, Ads?
At Sports Finance is where I am on Twitter, X, whatever it's called.
Ads, you're a diamond. Thank you so much.
Thanks always a pleasure, guys. It's been really
always
good.
A pleasure.
Cheers.
Bless you. Never a dull one, is it, Ads? Never a quiet one when you're here. Not to say you're starting anything, but normally it's never a quiet one. Brilliant. And thank you so much. Shawnee, where can we find you, mate? Like I say, I know I've missed you the last couple of weeks. We know you've had a lot going on, mate. So I want to say, firstly, from me to you, what a debut, mate. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on Last Word On Spurs, mate. Hopefully the first of many to come, my man. Thank you so much for your time and really appreciate you making this work, Shawnee.
No, listen, it's been an absolute pleasure. I do feel like I've been a bit ring rusty, a couple of weeks out of the off the camera, and I'm potentially a little bit sort of debative, like, or argumentative a little bit. You know, my mood right now is a little bit off kilt, if that makes sense. So but mate, very appreciative for you to invite me on. Hopefully, get to do more together in the future. And yeah, you can find me at Spurs Talk Show. I am going to try and take Bugsy Malone out, my dog, out for a walk tomorrow. Bring the camera with me and see if we can get some content going again, because I miss doing it. But yeah, thank you so much. It's been a really, really nice little relief from a tough period. Thanks, guys.
Bless you, mate. Listen, mate, I think, again, the comments speak so much for you, mate, how much you're adored in the Spurs community. So keep on doing your thing, mate. And we look forward to joining us once again. And Macca, as we know, it's a busy next few weeks in store. Lots to come on Last Word On Spurs. As always, it's never a dull moment here. We'll be covering you every step of the way. Macca, thank you so much, mate. It was enforced annual leave, but you're back now. And unfortunately for you, there's lots to come, mate. So are you ready?
Loads going on, mate. I just want to say a massive shout out to Adam and Shawn. It's always genius. Both of them loving their content. And also everybody watching and listening, Rick. I mean, this show is just unreal. We're nearly just over 6,000 people watching live. We're going to end up getting about 60,000 downloads on this over the next kind of 6-7 days or so. It's absolutely insane. We absolutely love it. And we couldn't do it without everybody watching and listening. So thank you so much for the support for us at Last Word On Spurs. And yeah, we go again, mate. We go again with more transfers. Get Jason McGovern on the transfer show.
I'd love to get Jason on. Jason, bless his heart. Listen, we'll get Jason on for pre-season, that's for sure. Just a reminder for those that don't know, you can vote for us in the upcoming football content awards for 2024. Those votes are now open. You can vote for us by going to the QR code for a watching audience, or you can go to the description link on our audio channel where you can nominate us for best podcast in the Premier League by typing Last Word On Spurs under best podcast. But I want to say again, as Macca said there, massive thank you to everybody that watches, that listens, that downloads and interacts with the show. You guys are amazing and a massive part of how and why we do this. So thank you so much from myself, from the wonderful Adam Osper, from the brilliant Shawn over at Spurs Talk Show. Please go and check him out. And from the superb Lee McQueen. We've been the Last Word On Spurs. We ask you to keep safe, keep well.